We have major Rams injury updates all in today's episode of the Rams Digest. We're also going to talk about a record-breaking performance, not talking about Cooper Kupp, of course, talking about Sean McVay. We'll get into all that on today's episode of the Rams Digest. But first, if you guys are not subscribed, do me a favor, subscribe right here, right now. I do have to get an update for these numbers because we are growing. We are already over 400 subscribers on the channel, which is great, but we want more of you guys. We are really trying to push for that 1,000 subscribers milestone. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you have not yet done so. Let's get into the first bit of injury news here as we are talking about Matthew Stafford. A quick injury update for those who don't know. A little bit banged up after that game in New Orleans, really dealing with an ankle injury, a lower body injury in general. Obviously, we've got more details now talking about his ankle, and it looks like he is actually expected to play versus the Bills. Definitely a little bit of scary news, right, when you're hearing about Matthew Stafford going into this game versus the Buffalo Bills versus New Orleans Saints. Again, we were kind of feeling like they were a favorite in that game, so of course not really as not that we weren't concerned, of course, not that you were going to go into that game being fine if we had no Matthew Stafford, but coming out of that game, we are going into a little bit more of a more competitive game. It was a close game versus Saints, don't get me wrong. But we obviously need all hands on deck versus the Buffalo Bills, as that is probably the biggest challenge in the next few weeks in terms of what's keeping the Rams from making the playoffs. So good news that he is expected to play. We can get into the next little screenshot we have here as this tweet is explaining Matthew Stafford suffered a lateral ankle sprain against the New Orleans Saints. What does this specifically mean? High ankle sprain, low ankle sprain, all that stuff kind of can be different and varying. I haven't really heard lateral ankle sprain that often when we're talking about ankle injuries, but nonetheless, we are talking about a lateral ankle sprain against New Orleans. Sean McVay told the media his practice and game status should not be affected. So, again, good news for Matthew Stafford. Not really much other injury news to report. I think Demarcus Robinson may have been a little bit banged up as well after the game. Sean McVay also acknowledging we're all good on that front as well. Should be all hands on deck again versus the Buffalo Bills, which is great news. Great news, of course. Sean McVay, just so you guys can see exactly what he said, he just had a little lateral ankle sprain, word for word what the tweet said. Nothing that is going to change his weekly rhythm as far as practice. He should be good to go. Again, just great news overall. Matthew Stafford ready to play versus the Buffalo Bills. Need all hands on deck. Going to be an exciting one. Going to be a big game for the Rams. If you can't get this victory, it's been a little bit interesting, right? We've been talking about the Rams and their record this year, starting the season 1-4. I think people are kind of forgetting that 2-4, right? So the last few games, even though it's felt like we're struggling trying to get to 500, trying to get above 500, they started 2-4, started 1-4, right? So the last 6 games or so, the Rams have been 4-2. Pretty good overall, but again, it's kind of hard to feel that way when you're sitting at 6-6 going into a game versus the Buffalo Bills. Not really in the best position, but ultimately we are excited to see what the Rams can do versus a Super Bowl contending team like the Buffalo Bills. Could really shock the world. Could shock the NFL, really, if we go in that game and compete as we know they can. Moving on from that, we can go ahead and get into the next bit of news. Sean McVay holds the Rams record for the most wins from a coach. Pretty exciting news for Sean McVay. I know it's kind of easy to forget that he is a 38-year-old head coach, very young. Obviously, Matthew Stafford about to be 37 years old, so just kind of an interesting situation and dynamic we have there. But Sean McVay already at the young age of 38, a couple years ago, talking about retirement and things like that. It looks like it's all good here, as it looks like he breaks the record, makes history for the Los Angeles Rams, the winningest coach in Los Angeles Rams history. So you definitely want to clap it up for the head coach, Sean McVay. You know, we were talking about this a little bit on last couple episodes, just talking about McVay in general, right? Are fans getting tired of him? Maybe the offense is feeling stale, not being as creative as he used to be, all that good stuff. But ultimately, Sean McVay, great coach, the winningest coach in Rams history. I've personally, not trying to, brag about it or anything, but I've been in a room and I've seen Sean McVay speak to the players, speak to people in general. The motivational speech that he gives, the way he talks with passion and everything, to be honest with you, it's just something that you can't really get out of every single coach you see. It's really not something that can be faked. It's really not something that can be disingenuous, in my opinion. You really got to kind of tip your hat to what Sean McVay does year in, year out for the Los Angeles Rams. 76 wins on the career and counting. If he really wants to, he can go for 20 more years and just be beyond, any record setting that any coach can be for the Los Angeles Rams in particular. So definitely something you have to tip your cap to, and just kind of remind you, a little bit of a reminder, hey, look, I know we're frustrated by the wins and losses lately, but ultimately we got to remember what this guy has done, what Sean McVay has meant to the Los Angeles Rams as a franchise, breaking a record, I think, well-deserved. So shout out to Sean McVay for going out and doing his thing. Moving on to the last bit of screenshots. I just kind of want to pull this up here. As you can see, 76 wins in the regular season, 60% win percentage, 11 playoff victories, the most in Rams history as well. We were talking about, 7 playoff victories, 11 playoff games in terms of that he's been to, 1 championship, that Super Bowl win. Ultimately, again, just within the last 7 years only of Sean McVay being the head coach. Pretty awesome to see, again, him breaking this record. So that's kind of it. It's kind of all we want to talk about. A little bit of just things to think about before we start getting into details about the Buffalo Bills matchup and what that's going to mean for the Rams, what they can do to prepare for that game, what it's going to be like, what my predictions may be. We'll talk about all that in the next couple of episodes. As of this episode, that's going to do it for me. Let me know if you guys, what you guys think in the comments. And don't forget, please subscribe to the channel. And I'm out.